Chapter 1.
To set the Egyptian Book of the Dead in its wider context, we need to remember the civilization of ancient Egypt that endured for well over 3,000 years before it came to an end. The universe appeared to be governed by an eternal cosmic order within which everything had its rightful place. Even human life was compressed into a lifespan that was an integral part of this cosmic order,
Said Brenda Teague.
Yeah, okay.
A drowsy voice came to Brenda across the cubicle where she sat. Christopher, her colleague and long-term friend, had just had a long day of entertaining tourists. January is a popular time to visit Cairo, Egypt, as it falls during the country's mild winter. With cooler temperatures and mostly sunny days, it offers a comfortable climate for exploring ancient sites and experiencing vibrant culture. Brenda continued.
Have you noticed that a lot of religions seem to express their beliefs through myths? The Egyptian myths and the religion they inspired underwent a considerable evolution in the millennia prior to the emergence of the Book of the Dead, just as many other religions do.
Yes, Brenda, and all that studying is making my head hurt. Come on, let's go get some coffee.
Persisted Christopher.
Okay.
Brenda sighed, although she had little interest in leaving. She got up to depart with him but then quickly turned to grab a book to take with them and read on the go.
You do know the books will be there when you get back, right?
Mocked Christopher.
I know, but they are with me just in case we get held up and I need to do some light reading.
Brenda smirked. As they left the museum where Christopher and Brenda worked, she couldn't help but take in the old musty smells. After all, it housed over 170,000 artifacts. It has the largest collection of pharaonic antiquities in the world. She always thought it was such a privilege to work here as she studied Egyptology. Upon reaching the exterior doors, her phone rang. Christopher could read the concern in her voice and on her face as she answered the phone. He was suddenly wide awake as he anticipated to hear what was going on. Chapter 2. Brenda jolted upright in her soft leather seat, startling out of the semi-conscious daydream. She was sitting all alone in the enormous cabin of a corporate jet as it bounced its way through turbulence. In the background, the engines hummed evenly. Miss Teague? The intercom crackled overhead. We're on final approach. Brenda sat up straight and slid her notes back into her leather bag. She'd been halfway through reviewing Egyptian symbology when her mind had drifted about her late father. She suspected it had been stirred by the unexpected invitation from her longtime mentor, Glen Moody. The one man I never want to disappoint. She thought. The 63-year-old pastor and friend had taken Brenda under his wing nearly 30 years ago, in many ways filling the void left by her father's rejection. Despite the man's influential family and massive wealth, Brenda had found humility and warmth in Moody's soft blue eyes. Outside the window the sun had set, but Brenda could still make out the immense lights from above the city of Houston. Brenda loved her home state of Texas, and as the jet touched down, she felt a rising excitement about what lay ahead. The jet taxied to a private terminal somewhere in the vast expanse of George Bush Intercontinental Airport and came to a stop. Brenda gathered her things, thanked the pilots, and stepped out of the jet's luxurious interior onto the fold-out staircase. Even though Texas is usually hot, on this particular day in January it was humid, wet and cool. It felt like home again. Breathe, Brenda, she thought, appreciating the wide-open spaces. A blanket of white fog crept across the runway, and she had the sensation she was stepping into a marsh as she descended onto the misty blacktop.
Hello. Hello.
A British voice shouted from across the blacktop.
Brenda Teague?
She looked up to see a middle-aged woman with a badge and clipboard hurrying toward her, waving happily as she approached. Curly blonde hair protruded from under a stylish knit wool hat.
Welcome to Texas.
Brenda smiled.
Thank you. My name is Pamela, from Passenger Services.
The woman spoke with an exuberance that was almost unsettling.
If you'll come with me, your car is waiting.
Brenda followed her across the runway toward the signature terminal, which was surrounded by glistening private jets and a taxi stand for the rich and famous.
I hate to embarrass you, Brenda.
The woman said, sounding sheepish.
But are you the Brenda Teague who writes books about religion?
Brenda hesitated and then nodded.
I thought so.
She said, beaming.
My book group read your book Spirituality Without Religion. What an eye-opening reality. You do enjoy putting religion in check.
Brenda smiled.
Putting religion in check wasn't really my intention.
The woman seemed to sense she was not in the mood to discuss her work.
I'm sorry. Listen to me rattling on. I know you probably get tired of being recognized, but it's your own fault.
She playfully motioned to her clothing.
Your clothes gave you away.
My clothing?
Brenda glanced down at her attire. She was wearing her usual black undershirt, cardigan and boots with a pair of blue jeans. It was her standard attire for everyday life. She was a minimalist and had the same colors for every day of the week. The woman laughed.
Your attire is so simple. You'd look much more attractive in a beautiful colorful dress.
No chance, she thought. Dresses had been required of her for years when she was a young girl. She had to dress up for church every Sunday and Wednesday, and she was required to sit quietly. People in the congregation were seated and recognized for their glamorous appearances.
Thanks for the advice.
Brenda said with a chuckle.
I'll consider it in the future.
Mercifully, a young-looking man in a dark suit and a cowboy hat got out of a sleek Mercedes-Benz parked near the terminal and held up his finger. Miss Teague? I'm Noah. He opened the passenger door. Howdy, ma'am. Welcome to Texas. Brenda tipped Pamela for her hospitality and then climbed into the plush interior of the Mercedes. The driver showed her the controls and gave her a bottled water. Seconds later, she was speeding away on a private access road. So, this is how the other half lives. As the driver gunned the car up toward I-45, he placed a quick call. This is Noah, the driver said with his Texas slang. I was asked to confirm once my passenger had landed. He paused. Yes, sir. Your guest, Miss Teague, has arrived, and I will deliver her to the Galveston Island Convention Center by 7 p.m. You're welcome, sir. He hung up. Brenda had to smile. No stone left unturned. Glen Moody's attention to detail was one of his most potent assets, allowing him to manage his substantial influence with apparent ease. A few $1 billion in the bank doesn't hurt either. Brenda settled into the plush seat and closed her eyes as the noise of the airport faded behind her. Galveston Island was about an hour away, and she appreciated the time alone to gather her thoughts. Everything had happened so quickly that she only now had begun to think in earnest about the incredible evening that lay ahead. Arriving under a veil of secrecy. She thought, amused by the prospect. 10 miles from Galveston, a lone figure was eagerly preparing for Brenda Teague's arrival.